It's Monday, May 18th, 2026. You're listening to the DX Today AI Daily Brief. Today, Anthropic closes in on a $900 billion valuation. OpenAI slashes its model prices ahead of a critical Google I.O. keynote. And a stealth startup chasing recursively self-improving AI emerges with $650 million in the bank. Let's get into it.
Anthropic is in advanced talks to raise at least $30 billion in a round that would value the company above $900 billion. If the deal closes by the end of May, as sources expect, Anthropic would surpass OpenAI's $852 billion March valuation for the first time in the AI race. The numbers underneath the round are striking. Anthropic disclosed that first quarter 2026 revenue grew 80 times year over year, with annual run rate now above $44 billion. The pool of customers spending over $1 million a year has doubled to more than 1,000 in just 2 months. Investors are betting that Claude's enterprise momentum has finally tipped the scales.
From valuation to pricing.
OpenAI moved on Sunday to cut model API prices by up to 30% across several tiers, the most aggressive pricing action the company has taken this year. The move comes as Claude continues to win business adoption and as a wave of cheaper open-weight challenges pressure margins across the industry. OpenAI is also rolling out a self-serve advertising platform inside ChatGPT, signaling a new monetization layer beyond subscriptions and the API. The two announcements together mark a strategic pivot. After spending 18 months racing on model capability, OpenAI is now competing aggressively on cost and on revenue diversification, just as Anthropic narrows the enterprise gap.
And the spotlight turns to Mountain View.
Google's I.O. Developer Conference is now 48 hours away, with the keynote scheduled for Monday, May 19th at 10 a.m. Pacific. The company has confirmed the keynote will cover the latest Gemini model updates and agentic coding, language widely interpreted as a Gemini 4.0 reveal. Beyond the model itself, Google is expected to unveil Aluminium OS Gas, an Android-based replacement for Chrome OS targeting the consumer laptop market, along with a new Google Book hardware lineup built around Gemini intelligence. The bar is high. If Gemini 4.0 benchmarks even match Claude Mythos Preview's 94.6% GPQA score, Google takes the narrative for the week.
Massive compute is changing hands.
Anthropic has reached a major compute agreement that gives it access to the entire capacity of the Colossus 1 data center, the supercomputer originally built for Elon Musk's xAI, and now operated under the merged SpaceXI banner. The deal covers more than 300 megawatts of AI infrastructure and over 220,000 Nvidia GPUs. For Anthropic, the agreement provides a near-term answer to compute scarcity that has gated Claude rate limits all year. For SpaceXI, it monetizes capacity at a moment when more than 50 researchers have departed since the merger, hollowing out the pre-training and Grok voice teams.
And now to the workforce story.
Meta is set to begin a fresh round of layoffs on Wednesday, May 20th, cutting roughly 10% of its workforce, or about 8,000 jobs. The reductions follow Mark Zuckerberg's framing of 2026 as a year of efficiency, with the company shifting budget away from headcount and toward AI infrastructure. The cuts come on top of a brutal stretch for the tech labor market. Almost 80,000 tech workers were laid off in the first quarter alone, and nearly half of those eliminated roles were attributed directly to AI and workflow automation. Meta's move follows similar restructurings at Microsoft, Cloudflare, and Upwork over the past 2 weeks.
Speaking of Cloudflare
confirmed it will cut more than 1,100 jobs globally, roughly 20% of its 5,100 employee workforce. The company framed the reductions as a realignment around AI-native infrastructure products, including its expanding Workers AI platform and a new tier of agentic edge services. Coinbase made a similar move earlier this month, eliminating 700 roles, or about 14% of staff, to fund what its CEO called a more AI-centric workflow. The signal across these announcements is consistent: Operating model redesign is no longer theoretical. Companies are restructuring around agents, and the human cost is showing up in the headcount lines this quarter.
A new entrant emerges from stealth.
Recursive Superintelligence, a San Francisco startup chasing the holy grail of self-improving AI, emerged from stealth last week with $650 million in funding and a roster that includes Peter Norvig and Cresta co-founder Tim Shih. The company says it is building an AI system that can autonomously identify its own weaknesses and redesign its architecture to fix them, an approach that would, if it works, collapse the multi-month research cycle that currently gates frontier model improvements. The round signals continued investor appetite for moonshot research labs, even as VCs grow more selective about applied AI plays without a clear distribution moat.
Now to drug discovery.
Isomorphic Labs, the drug discovery AI company spun out of Google DeepMind, closed a $2.1 billion Series B, led by Thrive Capital. The round makes Isomorphic one of the best-funded AI drug discovery companies in the world, with capital earmarked for expanding wet lab capacity and accelerating its pipeline of AI-designed therapeutics. The deal underscores a broader pattern. Pharma is pouring real capital into AI-native discovery platforms after a series of validating partnerships, including in Silico Medicine's $2.75 billion agreement with Eli Lilly in March. The era of AI drug discovery as a pure research exercise is over.
And in Washington,
The U.S. Commerce Department's AI Safety and Infrastructure Bureau, known as CAISI, has finalized pre-deployment evaluation agreements with all 5 frontier AI labs. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google DeepMind, Microsoft, and xAI are now required to give the government early access for safety and capability testing before any major model release. The agreements mark the most concrete piece of AI oversight infrastructure the US has built to date, and they shift the pre-release timeline for every major lab. Industry observers warn that the testing window could slow shipping cadence, but most labs have publicly endorsed the framework as a way to head off harsher legislation.
from oversight to silicon.
Cadence Design Systems and Nvidia announced an expanded partnership at Cadence Live Silicon Valley 2026. The deal combines Cadence's multi-physics simulation engines with Nvidia's Isaac robotics libraries and Cosmos open-world models to close the persistent sim-to-real gap that has plagued robotics development. The result is an end-to-end AI agent-orchestrated workflow that spans world model training, physics simulation, large-scale scenario testing, and real-world deployment feedback. For robotics companies, the integration promises to compress what is currently a multi-quarter validation pipeline into something closer to continuous deployment, a step change in how humanoid and industrial robots reach the field.
Now to the data layer.
Snowflake and OpenAI have entered a landmark $200 million strategic partnership aimed at accelerating agentic AI deployment across the enterprise. The deal integrates OpenAI's most advanced models directly into Snowflake's data cloud, letting customers run agents against governed corporate data without shuttling it through external endpoints. For Snowflake, the partnership answers persistent customer demand for native AI workflows. For OpenAI, it deepens the company's enterprise distribution at exactly the moment Anthropic is winning headline business adoption numbers. Expect data warehouse rivals Databricks and BigQuery to respond within weeks with their own counter-integrations.
And finally to silicon supply.
Meta has signed a major deal with Amazon Web Services to deploy millions of AWS Graviton chips to power its agentic AI workloads. Graviton 5 is built on 3-nanometer process technology, and because AWS designs the chips from the ground up and controls server architecture end-to-end, Meta gains efficiency advantages that off-the-shelf processors cannot match. The deal also helps Meta hit its sustainability targets, since Graviton runs cooler than comparable parts. It marks a notable expansion of Meta's chip supply chain beyond Nvidia, and signals that hyperscaler custom silicon is now a credible second source for frontier-scale AI compute.
That's your briefing for Monday, May 18th, 2026. For DX Today, stay curious.